Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our webinar entitled Let's Have a Thoughtful Chat on Sustainable Employee Wellbeing and Cost Control. Today will be a very interesting session. We've got two industry HR professionals who will be on our panel session as well. And it'll be hosted by our Head of Counselling of ThoughtFull World, Dr. John Pinto. Thank you so much for everyone for joining in as well. Today is a very special one because we'll be speaking on cost containment strategies, enhancing employee benefits with digital mental health, and also fostering a thriving organizational structure and culture as well. So without further ado, to kick things off, I would like to invite on the stage as well, Dr. John Pinto, the Head of Counselling, to begin the session. Thank you, everyone, and let's have a thoughtful chat. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ayrton. Thanks for the introduction. Just a quick intro as well. My name is John, and I'm the Head of Counselling at ThoughtFull, and I'll be your host for today's Have a Thoughtful Chat session. This is hopefully going to be one of the first in a series of sessions, and today we're going to focus on the idea of sustainable employee well-being and cost containment. So just to give everyone a little bit of an outline for what we'll be doing today, I'm going to start off with a brief introduction to digital mental health solutions in employee well-being. And this is going to be of interest to, I think, all of you present here today, particularly those of you who are in the employee well-being space. Now, after this, after that quick introduction, I'm going to be inviting our special guests today, two of our special guests, which you'll see later. They are in the HR field as well. So without further ado, I'm going to go into the core of my presentation today. And it's going to really focus on two aspects. So when I started out this presentation, these were the two questions that I had in mind, which I believe that a lot of you who are in the employee well-being space may have the same questions in mind as well. Now, question number one is, why should mental health be part of an employee benefits or well-being program? Yeah, given that there are so many other aspects of well-being, why is mental health important? And the second point that I would like to address also today, which I hope that my 10-minute presentation will be able to address, is why consider digital mental health solutions. So typically what we have is the typical traditional mental health solutions, the EAPs and so on. They are usually centered on the user having to call or to make a call or to arrange for a physical meeting. Now, how do digital mental health solutions improve this process, and why is it necessary? Yeah, so these are the two key questions I hope to answer within the next 10 minutes or so. Now, to start with, right, why is mental health a key component in, let's say, the employee well-being space? I'm going to try and look for my pointer over here. Now, I want to point to some of the key things that are probably of interest to any employer, any company for that matter. First of all, absenteeism, disability claims and medical claims, poor morale, which impacts productivity. Now, a lot of these issues that are core concerns to employers worldwide are mainly a result of some deeper underlying problems. And most of these problems, as you can see, they are mostly behavioral in nature. A lot of them are behavioral in nature, which means that if we have a proper mechanism to address mental health concerns, you would likely be able to tackle this iceberg from bottom up. Yeah, so that's really one of the key points that I would like to bring up. Why do we need mental health? So why do we need to consider mental health in employee well-being? The key reason is because what matters for employers are driven partly, in large part, by mental health concerns. Now, what is mental health? I think when we typically talk about mental health, we think about things like major depressive disorders. We think about things like schizophrenia, like anxiety disorders, and so on. Now, those are things that fall under more towards the curative and the crisis spectrum. Yeah. Mental health itself is a lot broader, and there is a big component here, what we call the preventive spectrum of things. And the reality is, once we focus on components like psychoeducation, teaching people to manage their emotions, their relationships, and so on, when we focus on the behavioral coaching and all these other components that are considered to be preventive, a very interesting thing happens. And that is, people do not proceed towards the curative or crisis spectrum. In other words, prevention is better than cure because prevention prevents escalation. And I think that's one of the core narratives that we're trying to push forward here is that if I can provide sufficient means for people to prevent, sufficient means for preventive support, I will be able to reduce the number of people that are escalated. And the problem with escalation is that it's not only is that it's indicative of severity, not only is that it is more severe for the person itself, it is also more costly. Now, this is a typical traditional mental health solution. This is typically what the traditional EAPs offer, right? What they offer is mainly in-person therapy or online therapy or crisis interventions, and these usually fall under the curative or the crisis spectrum of things. Now, what about digital mental health solutions? Typically, a digital mental health solution would offer the whole spectrum of care, starting with the preventive side of things, right up to the curative side of things. Now, even within digital mental health solutions, there are two types. There are some digital mental health solutions that tend to focus on synchronous care, and asynchronous tools are used in some more of an administrative aspect. Whereas there are others who tend to use asynchronous tools as one of their core interventions as well. Now, typically, when you have asynchronous tools used as a core intervention, you improve the access of people to mental health care professionals, because people do not, your employees do not need to call a mental health professional. What they need to do is just text them, and there can be curative conversations that are ongoing within text itself. Now, how do we know that those conversations themselves are helpful? How do we know that? This is how we do. So this is a study that we conducted, and it's been published in the JMIR journal. What we showed was that when corporate staff in particular, when they use thoughtful chats, asynchronous text-based services, they are able to reduce symptoms of depression, anxiety, and stress significantly in particularly in corporate staff, but also in students, housemen, and faculty members. So this was a study that was published in ThoughtFull. And what this study particularly shows is that by having an asynchronous tool, you're able to reduce some of the distress that people face without going into further help, like, video therapies and so on. Now, in terms of cost, let's talk about cost, right? Typically, if you have, let's say, mild to moderate depression or even severe depression, this is the number of sessions that a person would typically go through. And out of pocket, this would be the amount that it would cost for the total number of sessions here. And this is for an in-person care. If it's a synchronous session that happens online, typically the cost would be slightly lower because, we wouldn't have a need to have a space, let's say, and it can be done online at your own space and so on. And so the cost can be slightly lower. Now, let's say we provide them with an asynchronous tool, for instance, like ThoughtFull Chat. With the asynchronous tool, what happens is that there is a subscription cost, but they are able to have nonstop text-based coaching with their mental health professionals. And this can be ongoing, and it's not a one-off thing. It's more like a conversation that is ongoing, where the professional could actually train them and help people to manage their emotions and look out for resources as well. Now, if this is the case, and if our studies prove to be true, or rather, if the fact that your asynchronous services are effective enough, then what happens is that we are able to prevent escalation, which means we no longer need the in-person or the synchronous forms of services, in which case we are able to reduce the cost, provided that there's no escalation, by up to 94%. Yeah, and this is based on out-of-pocket and market average. Now, a little bit of introduction to the ThoughtFull approach itself before I go into the second part of our conversation today. The ThoughtFull approach covers the whole spectrum of care. It starts with a preventive solution that focuses on text-based coaching, that is asynchronous, that is accessible through the ThoughtFull Chat application. And it proceeds to include video therapy and also in-person therapy when needed. Now, ThoughtFull also has a 24/7 crisis hotline, which you may be able to call when you need support as well. And last but not least, what we also provide is ongoing activation and learning, where there are psychoeducation webinars and also some seminars that are also conducted in person throughout the year to the employee, and it's provided as part of the overall package. Yeah. So if you have any further questions on the intervention itself or the service provision of ThoughtFull, please feel free to scan here and speak to our team. Without further ado, I'm going to first stop sharing my screen. Maybe I'll just put this on a little bit. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen right now, and I'm going to... One second. Right. So before I proceed, welcome again for those of you who have just joined us. Welcome to our chat on sustainable employee well-being and cost control. If you've just joined us, my name is John Pinto. I'm the head of counseling at ThoughtFull, and I'll be moderating this panel discussion. I'm going to proceed to introduce our guest for today. So our first guest, we have two highly experienced HR leaders with us today. Our first guest is Dr. Michael Lu, who has over 23 years of experience in the HR industry, spanning various sectors, including manufacturing, infrastructure, construction, and healthcare. As the head of people at Infinity Logistics and Transport, Dr. Michael has been instrumental in shaping the company's people strategy, earning numerous accolades, including top 100 Asia's best employer brands. His expertise in talent management, organizational development, and HR practice has made him a prominent figure in the HR community. Now, joining Dr. Michael Lu is Mr. Don Liao, the Chief Human Resource Officer of SBS Transit, one of Singapore's leading public transport operators with over 20 years of experience in both the public and private sector. Don oversees the full spectrum of human resources and organizational development functions at SBS Transit. His proven track record in strategic and operational HR excellence has been pivotal in managing HR functions in a dynamic and complex environment. So welcome to both Michael and Don. Now, let's start by talking about internal priorities. My first question is going to be to Dr. Michael. Could you share some of the key priorities that Infinity focuses on when it comes to employee well-being? And maybe a little bit about what initially drove these priorities. And do you have any examples or maybe stories that you could highlight about Infinity's approach that makes it unique in some ways?
All right. Thank you, Dr. John. Infinity Logistics Transports, we cover most of our intermodal services from air, ocean, freight, 4PL, and warehousing. Now, being the head of people, when you talk about well-being, I always have this, I will look into three main criteria before I implement any well-being initiative. First will be on the practicability, something that we can do and something that we can measure, right? Second will be cost, affordability, program or initiative has to be cost effective. And last but not least, sustainable, the sustainability whereby the program can be run consistently and it will bring impact after to the employee. Now at Infinity, at this moment of time, I only focus into four, which is one will be the first will be on the physical health. Some initiatives that we have done, example, fitness program, fun basic health screenings, as well some fun wellness challenges. We realized when we do the data analytics, we realized medical leaves, and that impact the rising healthcare costs. And also, we also recognize the importance that healthier employees, they are more productive and engaged. Currently, we have programs such as Zumba, yoga. These are run by our internal staff. They have passion in this area. We also organize very simple kind of activities such as step challenges, whereby employee or departments, they can compete, among each other, to get the highest number of steps in a month. And then at the same time, we foster those the health and team spirit. Secondly, this topic is very important. This is the mental health. Currently, we have collaborations with the employing this called employee assistance programs. And then these are some of the initiatives that we have run, where we have counselors who provide uh, uh, sessions with our employee who are in need. As well, we also do run mental health days, and then as well stress management workshop from time to time. We realize, we need to increase the awareness of the impact of mental health, in the overall productivity and the workplace morale. Though some of the we realize cases, in terms of the numbers spikes, those absenteeism, that are stress related absenteeism. So we run a lot of those mindfulness per se, those are sessions, and also we provide counseling services, so that we try to minimize, to decrease the absenteeism. Next, I would say the work-life balance. Logistic very difficult to run. Working from home is very impossible unless it's from the shared services department. So we have this called flexi working hours. At the same time, we also implement paid time off. But it's not something that we run at macro. It's very confined to certain targeted functional and individuals. Yeah. So basically, I mean, looking at the new generations, everyone is looking for flexible working arrangement, working hours, and etc. So what we have at this moment of time, we call this called staggered working hours. We realize employee, especially in this industry, they are too burnout as well, and then this lead to higher job dissatisfactions, and etc. So we give some privileges for them to have some flexi hours, at the same time some paid time off to settle their personal matter. Last but not least, we are moving this program in September onwards, which is financial well-being. So we want to educate our workforce about retirement planning, and then we also want them to understand what is called financial literacy. We also want to make them to understand how they plan their financial, so that they get able to have sufficient saving when it's needed. So we also, what drives us to do that? Because we realize the younger generations, we recognize that they always have this financial stress, and they always ask for personal loans and kind of salary advance from time to time. So by educating, by running these kind of programs, we believe it may not solve every problems, so that so that we're able to help employees to feel more secure, secure on the financial part. Yeah. So far I'm just focusing on these 4 key areas.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Michael, for explaining that. I think to be honest, it's really a very comprehensive solution, right? It seems like from Zumba right down to counseling and financial literacy, that's like it seems like all the different facets of needs for your employees are being sort of considered into that very thoughtful approach. I would say it's quite a deep and thoughtful layer of care that you're trying to provide for your employees. My next question will be to Mr. Liao as well. How has SBSD's approach to employee well-being, employee benefits evolved in response to the changing landscape of healthcare and well-being? And maybe if you could also explain what specific changes have you implemented and what motivated these adjustments?
Right, thanks, John. Very happy to be here today. Maybe just a bit of an intro on SBS Transit. We've been here for 51 years. So starting with the bus business, obviously, and since about 20 years back, we have also started running train lines in Singapore. So we are now a multi-modal operator. So just to answer your question, for SBS Transit, employee benefits are obviously a key component of our employee value proposition. And this helps us in attracting and retaining our fair share of talent and manpower. We have been providing complimentary annual health screening for employees for some time, and this is above the standard inpatient, outpatient, and specialist medical benefits that we accord all our employees. We have also negotiated with our healthcare provider to offer discounted add-ons during healthcare screening for our employees, and this includes cancer screening. But in recent years, we've also started providing our employees access to an employer assistance program, and this is app-based. And in fact, we have been partnering ThoughtFull since earlier this year. to do this. We recognize that beyond physical health, we need to support our employees' well-being with a range of resources they can leverage on, either on a self-directed basis or through talking to a professional. Having a platform, although is important, it's not enough. We also recently pushed out a campaign to make sure that we also have a supportive environment to support our employees. So this campaign is known as It's Okay to Not Be Okay. And it's really to normalize conversations about mental wellness challenges so that we provide a safe environment for people to come forward so that we can support them. And maybe just to summarize in short, why we have done all these things and why the changes have happened over the years is that uh, there are two factors I can see. One is that there's increased prioritization of the health and well-being of employees, especially after COVID-19 pandemic. And of course, the other is the fact that there's acceleration in the adoption of advanced technologies in redefining traditional healthcare practices. And we do believe that physical and mental wellness go hand in hand, and providing options for employees to rest and unwind, which I have a whole range which I will not go through in detail. And this also help them because there's the interlinkage between mental and physical health. And likewise, supporting them in the mental health arena means that also we reduce the occurrence for psychosomatic conditions.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Don. I think that's it's quite progressive, I would say, right? Especially the emphasis on mental well-being. It's I think probably this is, you guys are probably the I would say the first in terms of public transport who is actually providing this kind of in a way a care that emphasizes mental well-being as well. And it's pretty holistic and also pretty progressive in that sense, which is amazing. I want to go through a little bit on the cost aspect that I think, Michael, you've alluded to just moments ago. So as we think about the delicate balance between managing costs and maintaining quality, right? Very delicate balance. Dr. Michael, what strategies have Infinity found effective in balancing these two critical factors? And of course, how do you ensure that cost is contained without negatively impacting your employee well-being?
Okay, like I mentioned, I was from healthcare, quite a number of years. I always believe it's good to invest in the preventive health, yeah, as well as some wellness programs, rather than reactive healthcare. Basically, what we do, so that when you do this kind of investment in preventions, the company actually can reduce a long-term healthcare costs, yeah, at the same time maintaining or even improving our employee well-being. As simple as we providing offer flu shots, right, to our employees, as well basic health screening for our truck drivers, because the durations, the physical demands for them to traveling almost like 365 days, yeah. So we provide these fundamental preventive programs so that we're able to find any early detections of potential health issues. And from there, then we can offer much comprehensive supports, as and when needed. Now, next, I would say, I'm a very strong believer in data. Yeah? Data gives a lot of perspective and able me to make sound decisions. Yeah? So I use data analytics to understand certain benefits, what is most valuable to our employees, and what those are not underutilized. I run a lot of focus group by different generation, different age group, because I do not do one size fit all. We need to know the younger generation, what kind of needs they required, the middle one as well, myself, the golden generation, per se. Yeah. So probably having a different focus group, they'll be able to get a lot of data, what are needed in terms of the perspective of employee well-being. From there, then HR can tailor-made these benefits packages so that we can maximize the value and then we can minimize the waste. Yeah. So by having this kind of plans, Infinity, we're able to cut quite a number of costs here, especially for those unused program. Like for example, yeah, when we have this the optical, many ones say that, oh, not every year I'll need to change my specs. Can we change this allowance to something that we can do and whatnot? So we realize some benefits are not fully utilized for certain groups, but some yes. So we need to ensure that we make our benefit more agile, more flexible, so that people can pick and choose what they really want. Yeah. And having said that, we're able to maintain our cost per se, maintain our cost per se. At the same time, we also educate our employees about cost-effective healthcare options. For example, choosing generic drugs over those brand name ones, yeah, for example. At the same time, we're also comparing a lot of prices when we need for a medical procedures. I think that is one exercise HR under the com and ben divisions. We do this kind of comparison from time to time. And at the same time, we also encourage those informed decision making, among the stakeholders, so that we're able to control the cost while ensuring employees receive the care they need. As simple as we launch our recent the healthy campaign. We have this healthy posture, healthy eating, healthy living, and healthy smile. Basically, this is one of the programs to educate us to take care of our health, at all times. I also want to touch a bit at what Infinity doing at this moment. Link back to my earlier point number 2 is the flexible benefit designs. Like I mentioned, we customize certain benefits packages for certain groups, and we move away this one size fit all approach. At the same time, we implement a lot of we work closely with certain partners on this well-being plan, something that we're able to purchase, we're able to afford to purchase, where employee can choose certain range of benefit options and to make sure that they get the value from their selections. Yes. This is something that I can share with you at this moment of time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Dr. Michael. That was very insightful. If I'm hearing you correctly, and this is something that is being echoed throughout the industry, right? There's really 3 components here. And what you're saying is, number 1, there's a proactive approach to healthcare, or a proactive approach to care, where you're not just waiting for people to get sick, but you're going before that, you're looking at prevention, which is precisely what we do at ThoughtFull as well. The second one that I'm hearing you say is data, right? You're going to use data to determine who gets what, or, rather what needs to be X'd out and what needs to be doubled down on. So that's one. And the third thing, I think what's amazing here, and I think this is something that a lot of our the participants today, a lot of those here may be able to benefit also, is the personalization aspect. So you're saying that not one size fits all. Yeah, I think this is amazing because it's very in line, not just with what we are doing at ThoughtFull, but it's also in line with what we are hearing in the industry. And in fact, our own numbers, which is, this is something that's going to go in one of the white papers that we release. Our own numbers actually show that if you focus more on prevention, you reduce the people who are going more upstream, right? And it's amazing. So yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Dr. Dr. can I just add a bit more? I think just for some insights, just a quick one. When they talk about cost, it's very much you need to engage employees in the decision making. Like I said, the focus group, what the wants versus the needs, So I think it's very important to have that so that we know how much that we can afford to run certain program. And next will be the transparent communication. We need to be transparent in the communication, our situation, our cost, where we are. Let them realize, wow, we spend so much, we have invested so much, and whatnot. So it's very important so that we do not want to have that kind of misunderstanding why company don't invest this and whatnot. So I think transparent communication is very important. Last but not least, like I say, data, we need to have a very continuous monitoring. My com and ben team, they really track the utilization. We also study the trends. We also study which department the highest and the lowest. I think that will give us a very good insights. What is our com and ben in terms of well-being programs that we're going to do year after years? I think that's some insight to share with the participants.
Those are very valuable insights, Dr. Michael. Thanks for sharing that. I'm going to move on to Don. So this is more on digital solutions here. So digital solutions are becoming increasingly important in the realm of employee benefits, as you yourself have observed, right? So from SBST's perspective, to what extent does, let's say, insurance coverage play a role in your employee well-being plan? Or is SBST looking at these benefits as separate from the insurance coverage? What exactly is the gameplay here for SBST?
All right, thanks, John. Today, our insurance coverage is mainly in the areas of outpatient, specialist, and inpatient medical treatment. It does not cover employee well-being per se. So this is something that we are expanding additional resources on to make sure that we have this holistic approach to supporting our employees. So, for example, our pivot to supporting employees' mental wellness through ThoughtFull is not covered by our insurance plans today. But this is something we want to put emphasis on because like what Michael mentioned also, there is that direct correlation between good mental wellness and physical wellness too, with productivity and engagement. And this, of course, then promotes a better workplace culture, and this will enhance employee retention. It also provides an edge in terms of attracting the younger profile people who are joining the workforce, because I think for them, they do prioritize mental wellness support as part of our employment contract that they look at. And just to mention a bit of some of the things that we're doing also, you talk about digital solutions. So one of the things that we've done is to sign an MOU with NTUC Club to go on to their Uplay. So Uplay is actually touted as a phygital offerings of social and recreational initiatives and attractions that people can actually have access to. So essentially what happens is they go online, they sign up, and they basically can have all this range of things that they can actually avail themselves to rest and relax, to spend time with their family and loved ones. And this is something which has gotten very good traction, I must say, among our employees. And the other thing we're looking at also, like what Michael shared, is that in terms of our flexible benefits, today we give it in terms of a lump sum and people use it for various curated things that we have for them, right? Including, of course, to support their physical play, during their free time and all that. But we find that increasingly we need to have a more expanded way of looking at this in terms of whether or not employees who join us can then have a choice between lesser flexible benefits but higher leave days or maybe more medical coverage. So there's a bit of that flexible menu that they can look at just to make sure that they are covered in terms of different life stages they are at, and of course the different life needs that they are going through at that point in time.
Yeah, thanks, Don. So what I'm hearing here is also it's also pretty progressive in the sense that you venturing into the digital aspect of things. But I think maybe one thing that should be highlighted here is that it's quite a bold move, right? In some sense, because your well-being package is outside of your insurance, and it's still something that you see to be valuable, and because you know that it's going to bring benefits to your to the group of people that you're looking at. So yeah, that's amazing. Now back to you, Dr. Michael. In terms of digital mental health solutions, digital mental solutions are being integrated more and more into the well-being plans, as what Don had mentioned as well. What opportunities do you see for digital solutions to transform traditional benefits, particularly in preventive care? Since you did mention that preventive care is one of the key areas that you guys are also looking at. And have you encountered any limitations in the typical traditional benefits per se?
Okay, definitely. We're talking about the new era. I believe everyone had this called the wearable devices. Those wearing on your hand, you can, or this mobile app, so they can track your your health metrics like your activity levels. Sometimes even sleep patterns, heart rates. Or stress level, to name a few. Now these tools, I believe many able afford to purchase, because I believe these products has been in the mass quantity in the market. I think everyone can afford to purchase, and I believe this tool able to give what I said, that kind of real-time monitoring, monitoring at the same time. They can personalize their health recommendations, so that it were able to encourage them to have a very proactive health management. For example, by tracking their individual health metrics, they can receive early warning, what are some potential health issues, so that they can able to take early preventive measurements before the problem escalates. They can talk to HR departments, then we can arrange what supports that are needed. So that will also that we can aggregate this data, yeah, per se, and then we can tailor made certain wellness programs more effectively, I would say. At the same time, mental health well-being apps this is something that I'm exploring. Thankfully, we have ThoughtFull, yeah, because mental health, I believe these apps, this mental health, can really provide at least to assist my colleagues in terms of the trust management. Working in logistics is not something that it's very different from healthcare or from construction that I've been, because this logistics is a very hardcore kind of industry. So having this kind of digital platform, we can really help to integrate a lot of how do I say, employee benefit plans. At the same time, we're able to provide the continuous kind of supports from the outside from the traditional office hours, so that they can access from time to time. Now, when you talk about limitations, now, not like I said, some able to afford to purchase, some not every employee they have the equal access to digital health tools. Either they are due to lack of technology or the constraint of funding, as well as simple as internet connectivity. So especially we have colleagues who stay at Pulau Indah, very rural area, they may not able to have access to this kind of facilities. In terms of data collections, I also have big concerns, because sometimes employees, they are so stigma that they do not want us to know what happens in terms of their health, so that to maintain the sensitivity of informations. So because of that, they're so worried what we're going to use with this data, into what kind of platform, in other words, they are very concerned how we manage their personal data, and very concerned, do we share this data out for negative purposes, which we don't. And then at the same time, when you talk about well-being, it's not something very easy to run, so that not everyone, or we can guarantee that all employees will use this kind of platform. We purchase, maybe the acceptance or the utilization will be, it's not something great. So we need to do a lot of engagements, and then how do we introduce, and how do we promote, and how do we integrate this platform into their benefit program. Yeah, these are some of the concept and the limitation I have.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Michael. I think that was pretty comprehensive, in the sense that, in terms of limitations, I think in terms of data policies, I think those are some of the core concerns as well within the industry. And I think it's not just about internal data policies, right? It's also the policies you have with your vendors as well, and how they are managing the data as well. So yeah, that's good. I'm going to take one more question to Don, and then I'm going to go into some of the questions that our attendees have placed as well. So we're going to go through that as well. But yeah, so back to, as we continue to explore this topic, Don, with the ongoing focus on enhancing plan design to improve attraction, retention, and engagement, what aspects of plan design do you believe are most crucial for SBST? So, and how do you balance the need to offer comprehensive benefits while managing costs? So similar question. Yeah.
Thanks, John. I think in terms of insurance plan going forward, they should start covering mental wellness, and also to include those which are offered via digital platforms. This is especially important, I think, especially given the importance of that has been placed in this area today. I think for employees who support the public transport industry, they do come under some degree of stress as they go about their work. People tend to expect a lot, and they demand a safe and reliable network of bus and rail services. And of course, I'm sure that this applies to other companies too, in terms of the fact that their employees are also under stress. And there are benefits in providing mental wellness support digitally. First, I think it does allow for easy accessibility, and this is something that they can access throughout the whole day, as opposed to going to a place at a fixed time to get or to arrange a session with somebody that they need to talk to. And of course, for companies where they have a hybrid workforce, then this is even more easier in a sense that there's access 24/7. Employees may also feel more comfortable seeking help through digital platforms in the sense that they can have the assurance of anonymity and therefore less fear or concern about stigma or being judged in terms of maybe the challenges that they're going through. And I do believe that because of this, then there could be higher utilization in terms of such resources. And therefore, a company like SBS Transit will have a better sense of the challenges that people are going through so that we can better support them. And maybe just to use an analogy from our industry, we have this thing what we do on our vehicles and our trains, which are known as preventive and predictive maintenance. So preventive maintenance is actually time-based or usage-based, and it's really relying on a set of schedule that you have to send your bus or your train in for repairs or maintenance. I mean, for those of us who drive, you know, every couple of months you need to send your car in to have the mechanic take a look. Predictive maintenance, on the other hand, is a bit condition-based. It's actually relying more on data and equipment monitoring. So if we use ThoughtFull app in how we have actually leveraged that to support our employees, they actually allow us to do preventive and predictive maintenance for our employee populations. So on a daily basis, our employees can schedule a check-in to see what's the mental state is, talk to somebody if they need to, on their challenges, be it on the professional or on the personal front. And this is actually preventive maintenance to us. And for the company, we'll then also have high level aggregate data in terms of what are areas that people are feeling challenged in and what are the resources that they're tapping on so that we are more targeted in spending our limited resources to better support them going forward. And given the relationship between mental and physical health and the predictive maintenance benefits of leveraging on ThoughtFull, I do believe that we could reduce medical benefits consumption going forward because we are able to leverage on data and be in the know before things become more serious, right? So we can take preventive action to ensure that we don't come to the state whereby there's escalating medical costs.
Thank you, Don. I think that falls squarely within what our data is showing as well. The more preventive, the greater the utilization for preventive components, the lesser the utilization for the more downstream components. I also like your analogy on, predictive and preventive maintenance. I'm going to use that in my future talks as well. So thank you for that. I'm going to go through some of the questions that are posed to us in the chat as well. So this one, I'm going to open it up to both of you. The first question is, how do you balance cost and the importance of managing employee well-being? But there's a slant. I know it's very similar to the questions that you've answered earlier, but there's a slant to this question. This tends to be the main obstacle when we are discussing this with our management. So basically, I think what they're looking for, the person asking this, what they're looking for is, how do we discuss this effectively with the management? Yeah, so anyone wants to go first? Maybe Don, you want to go first?
Okay, I'll take a step. I think as I shared earlier, I think it's important to really look at data also in terms of what other companies are doing and what's the industry practice and of course the research out there in showing that if you are focusing more on really supporting our employees' mental wellness, then actually your downstream consumption of medical benefits could drop. So that will provide that use case. And then, of course, you need to, in a way, customize that to your industry, your company's context, in terms of how much you're spending today. And if you're spending a bit more, just to make sure you get onto the mental wellness side of things, maybe actually the returns could be a lot more. I mean, in the interim, there could be some additional expenditure you can expect. But I think you need to keep an eye on the long term that really this is extra money spent that's going to be well spent to make sure that down the road, actually, you're going to cut down on the other aspects of your spending. And therefore, on the whole, you're still going to save money, plus you're going to support your people better, your engagement is going to be better, productivity is going to increase, and obviously your retention is going to be much better. So all this will bring additional benefits that you also need to maybe cater for that ROI computation on, because if you're losing people, then actually the cost of rehiring is actually quite high also.
Right. And so it's basically using data to substantiate the argument that you spend more now for better returns in the future. Dr. Michael, what are your thoughts?
I totally agree with Don. Data represent, you need to do a storytelling in terms of the data to the management. But me being a typical HR, I try to do things DIY. At the same time, I try to get collaborations, pro bono collaborations with certain NGOs. I think having said that, for example, when I run my help program in August, September, it's all pro bono basis. But at the same time, I also promote their services to our group of employees. It's more like give and take kind of collaborations. Now, like those well-being activity, physical, we can just appoint our internal people who have passion in physical health. They can do classes after work, and we provide fundamental equipments for them to run. We even can incorporate certain allowances for them to be a part-time gym or yoga instructor per se. So I think management always look at the cost as well, the implementation part, and then what is it in for me by end of the day? People engage, or do you get the back of the ROI? So that is from the stakeholder, the management point. But what I would like to share, there are many things you can do DIY at the same time, and then I work very closely with the NGOs to provide talks, at the same time some fundamental assessments. We also do visits to other organizations who run well-being program. So we learn from them how they design the platform, and we try to curate internally if we can. At the same time, when you talk about the medical perspective, I work with my panel clinics, my panel clinic doctors. Look, I give you this kind of a business. We appoint you, so they will have that kind of CSR program with all of us. We also work with being my background in healthcare for many years, I call back my colleagues, my ex-colleagues, whether you can do basic free health screening tests here and there. I think it is something that we can do to our best ability to contain the cost, to let management, to give a try that we can do something with a very minimum cost. Now, at the same time, like platform, we can't do ourselves, for example. So we need to strategize platform, the affordability part of it, the utilization, and then how effectively. So these are the criteria we will look into it before we decide to appoint any platform on board. So end of the day is ROI, but at times ROI we can't measure. At times, yes, we do by data.
So what I'm hearing is an effective allocation of resources in not too many words. I have another question that is pretty much similar to the first one, but this is more on advice to other companies, right? So the question here is that given the current economic uncertainty, how do you both view the importance of maintaining strong employee wellbeing programs? I think that this we already know how you view it. I think that's the gist of the whole conversation. But what advice would you give to companies that might be considering cutting back on these initiatives? What would you tell them? Maybe Dr. Michael, you take this first, and then we'll go to.
I think it's a fact, It's a fact, from the costing part, like I said, we need to prioritize. You need to prioritize what is the most needed kind of benefits, versus the one not so important, versus those underutilized at all. So we try to move and balance the fund, plus minus here and there. I think that is one of the options that I look at. That's what I'm doing at this moment of time. At the same time, I can do is that, co-partnering management and employee. We have like 60-40% share kind of costs, or 70-30, 70 from the company, 30 from the employees. Of course, we want something better, something good. Of course, at times company, having fun, fun constraints or so I think one way we can collaborate with our employees, we partner in terms of the cost. Of course, I think at this moment of time, these are the two advices that I can share with the participants, that I think something workable, so far so good.
Thanks for that, Dr. Michael. And Don, what are your thoughts on this? Advice to companies.
I must say that I thought that actually the first function that any company will cut in bad times is actually L&D. I'm just kidding. Okay, anyway, I must say that just to share from the SPST perspective, for example, during the COVID-19 situation, when actually we're going through a bad economic patch, at that point in time, actually, it was easy to decide to just cut back on a lot of these things. But actually, the irony is that actually during that period, that was when actually our employees needed the most support in terms of the employee well-being side of things. So what we did was to really take a relook at how we can actually continue to be sustainable as a business. And of course, there was government support, which I think many countries also went into the area. What we did was actually to focus more on productivity. And what we eventually decided was that in any case, we were dealing with structural issues on the labor supply side. You know that Singapore, our birth rates are not great. It's dropped below one TFR of 1. And government side has been pushing out various programs and incentive to get our people to have more babies. The other one, of course, is that we are seeing locals joining the workforce being better educated. So we know that those are things we need to address. A smaller resource pool, which is getting better educated. So what do we need to do? We need to really recalibrate our workforce structure. And what I mean by that is that we need to level up the job roles so that today we take in a lot of IT grads, but going forward, this pool will decline. There'll be more diploma and degree holders. So restructuring means that we're going to level up the job roles, and in doing so, there'll be productivity gains. For example, 3 or 4 technician jobs can become 2 or 3 technical officer or assistant engineer jobs. So they're high-level jobs. So I will have savings where I can pay them better and still plow back to the business. So this is something that we decided to do. So we didn't cut back on the other areas, but we focus more on productivity. And by doing that, actually, we managed to ensure that we are still sustainable. And of course, we don't retrench people per se, but there were natural attritions that will take care of that. People will leave us anyway. And which happened after COVID-19, there was this mass vaccination that happened. A lot of us actually, started looking for other jobs and started moving into other roles. Yeah.
Right. I think that's very valuable advice in terms of it's quite strategic, right? In terms of the focus on productivity. Yeah, that's very interesting. I'm gonna go through one last question before we wrap up. So this is also from the member of the audience. This is regarding stigma surrounding mental health in the workplace. So as you know, there is a very big deal of stigma surrounding mental health in the workplace. Now, what steps have your organization taken to create an environment where employees feel comfortable seeking help or seeking support? So this time we'll start with Don, and then we'll go to Dr. Michael.
So I thought that actually addressing the stigma part is important, especially in an Asian society like ours. I think most people tend not to be very open about it. In the US, it's almost a badge of honor, I think, in the West, to say that I'm actually seeing a psychiatrist or psychologist, right? Here, not so much. I think people are still getting used to the fact that they are seeing somebody to discuss their issues, whether be it on the personal or on the professional side of things. But I think leveraging an app-based mental wellness support platform could be the answer to it, because there's a lot more anonymity in the sense that they can just access it without people knowing what they are doing on the platform. And what we see as an employee is just very top level aggregate data in terms of how many people are using the app, what kind of resources they are using, and of course, what are the issues that they may be highlighting, so that we can actually look at it to have more targeted responses. But I think besides that, like I mentioned earlier also, that culture is important within the company to make sure that everybody down the line, especially your supervisors and above, are also playing that supportive role. They cannot be in a position whereby they are taking a different stand with regard to how the company is approaching this issue. So that alignment is important to make sure that they are also trained. And that's something we are working on, to make sure that our supervisors and above are also trained to make sure that they are approaching our employees who are having issues, and if our employees are actually approaching them, they should actually deal with them with a lot of empathy and to provide the support necessary so that they can get back on their feet and come back to support us. Because I think that's something that we want to really focus on as an employee value proposition.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Don. Dr. Michael, for Infinity.
I concur to Don's sharing, because stigma especially being a Malaysian, I mean, the acceptance of this mental agenda topics is something welcoming, because they always find, if you have mental, you have problem inside, a psycho, and whatnot. So I think very importantly, what we did at Infinity, it's so much about diversify our approach to make them understand the importance of mental health. As simple as we have a very open communication. We touch this topic in our town hall. We touch this topic in our HOD meetings. We touch this topic into our morning briefing. Let them feel comfortable with the word mental and health. We do not do the rah-rah kind of campaign that we do in a very small scales. Let them feel comfortable with these two words. And then always, we also train our manager, HODs. We send them for workshops. They are trained to actually, they are not a profession certified, but to recognize the signs, why this person behave in such a way, and they can alert the HR, right? And then what we can do next. So I think that will help one way or another to bring this mental health agenda up as well. Everyone are open about this topic, and we can get help and we can support one another. Of course, HR will be the frontline person to manage as well, to ensure that all the employees who are having these problems are well taken care of.
Thank you, Dr. Michael. In the interest of time, I'd like to invite both of you actually to just give us maybe one takeaway for today's session. What would you like our attendees present here today to take away with them from your discussions today? So I'll start with Michael, and then we'll go to Don.
I believe when you talk about well-being, it's important for HR. It's not HR role 100%, but we are the agent to foster this, to create this a very supportive work environment. We need to champion the culture, not mention the culture, have the value of open communications about this topic, and then as well, we keep track on cases as well, data per se, to ensure that we're able to curate a program that's meeting our needs. At the same time, we're able to afford to run this program in long-term basis. Yeah.
Thank you, Michael.
At the same time, try to leverage a lot of those government schemes available in government schemes. Like, we have this health screening for 40 to 59 years old, free. I think there's a lot of program scheme offered by the government. Leverage it out, so don't feel shy, because they have a very good platform. At the same time, consider ThoughtFull. It's also a very good platform for us to understand this topic, to understand this mental health.
Thanks so much, Michael. Don.
I would say that actually, in terms of employee well-being, I mean, the key thing that we need to focus on is really that it has to be holistic. So we know that today there's a lot of focus on mental well-being, and that's something that I think many companies are now coming to realize that it's important to invest in the area, and also to be a bit more long-term in the perspective that while there could be some spending today, you're going to reap the reward in the longer term in terms of better engagement, productivity, and of course retention and all that. And also want to echo what Michael said in terms of government support. I think in Singapore, the Ministry of Health and the Health Promotion Board, they do have a wide range of grants and highly subsidized program that they can support you in terms of doing some of these things if you're just starting afresh. And many of these actually don't cost the company very much. So that's something that you can maybe they can consider as a first step. And then basically once they have that confidence and seeing the results, then they can choose to then invest a bit more on these various fronts.
Thank you very much for your insights, Don. And once again, thanks to both our panel members, Dr. Michael and Don. Thank you so much. I think all our participants would have definitely benefited a lot from the discussions today. I'm going to put up on the screen again the icon if any of you wish to speak to ThoughtFull for further information on what ThoughtFull offers. If you have any feedbacks, any thoughts as well, please feel free to let us know. Thank you so much to everyone participating here today. Thanks for your time. And we really hope that what we have presented today would added value to your endeavors in ensuring a better employee well-being program, a more effective employee well-being program for your employees as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
John.
Have a great weekend.
Right.
Bye.